you are definitely somebody, I have a little bit of a laugh, and I'm sure that even in the podcast that we launched today, I made it really important to have your little shimmy in there when you're getting ready to kick a goal. And you've spoken about the things that you've found from other coaches, from other players, and from your lifetime as a professional rugby player to bring yourself to the moment. And I know that resonates with so many people, even inside or outside of sport. Can you touch on a little bit about, yourself, what's gotten you to that point, and how you were able to find that groundedness when you've got so many big things going on and so many things resting on your shoulders?
Sure. Good everyone. First and foremost, my name's Ian Pryor. I'm a proud husband and father to an amazing wife and two very energetic young kids. I've got a daughter who's 6 going on 16. All parents out there would know what I mean. And a young raging rugrat of a son who's almost turning 4. So my former background is I was a professional athlete for 14 years. Majority of that time was with the Western Force for 11 of those, where I was lucky enough to be captain for a number of those years. And recently transitioned out of professional sport in the middle of last year, so almost coming up to 12 months now, being out of the professional rugby industry and sporting industry as a whole, where I transitioned into a health and safety injury management role with NRW Holdings before jumping on board with Metal Global a few months ago now, who specialise in leadership, resilience and crisis management training and providing solutions to uncommon problems. So that's a bit of my background. In terms of the grounding, one of my main roles in rugby union was kicking this inflated piece of rubber through 2 vertical posts that are sticking in the ground under obviously a little bit of pressure. So something I'd done since I was 5, 6 years old with Dad at the park trying to kick over the gum tree, to now doing it for a living. That's how I was providing for my family. In front of thousands of people, TV audience. We've got spectators who are telling you how good or how bad you are and what you should be doing for a living. And a really high pressure situation where it can have a flow-on effect to your teammates, yourself individually, your contractual status, coaching staff, commercial staff, sponsors, all these myriad of factors. So as you can imagine, a million things running through your mind. And generally in rugby union, for those that don't know, when a team scores a try, you've got 90 seconds for you as the goal kicker to pick up this inflated piece of rubber, walk it back 20 odd metres, put the tee on the ground. You've got to execute the skill in the game. And now within a game, there's a lot of variables. You can be having a great game. You can be having a not so great game. You can be tired. Your heart rate's 200 beats per minute because you've been running around like a headless chook. But it still comes down to executing this one skill that you've done since you were 6 years old. You can make it, like most things in life, you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want. So one of my routines that I developed was around grounding. So everyone here watched Gladiator, I'm assuming, one of the great movies of all time, yep. So picked up the technique off Russell Crowe when he puts the sword in the ground as he enters the arena, picks up a bit of sand and rubs it between his hands. So I thought, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. I think I might try and do something pretty cool. So stole that from him and would pick up a bit of grass, and after I picked up the ball, put it under my arm and rub it between my hands. And it was a simple tactile thing to try and bring me back into that present moment. It doesn't matter what's happened in the game, what might happen after, all this kind of stuff. It was to bring me back to that moment because I've got 90 seconds to kick this piece of rubber through the poles. From there, I'd start a little bit of box breathing. I'm sure everyone knows about it, sort of 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, because if I did any longer than that when I was tired, I'd probably pass out, and then exhale for 4 seconds. And that would generally we used to wear GPS and heart rate data, my heart rate from 180 to 200 all the way down to sort of 120, 140. And as we know from studies and physiological science around executing fine motor skills, if you're trying to do it, and we've seen all the horror movies where the guy's trying to unlock the lock when the bad guy's chasing him because his heart rate's through the roof, you start losing fine motor control skills. So idea of that was to try and bring the heart rate back down to give myself a greater chance of kicking. And then from there, it was the same process I'd done since I was 6 years old. 4 steps back, 3 steps across, a couple of breaths. And I remember my dad saying, when I was a youngster, like head down, follow through, watch the ball, nice and easy tempo. And, you start as a 6-year-old learning off your dad, and then when you become a teenager and a young adult, you're like, oh, Dad doesn't really know what he's talking about. All these other coaches come in who are paid professionals in their gig, and you're picking up a few things here and there, but the fundamentals don't change. And that was the thing that held true 30 years later. and then, would pray it would go over after you kicked it. And generally as a kicker, without even having to look up, as soon as your foot struck the ball, because you've done this, probably millions of times now, growing up and practicing as a professional, you would know whether it's going over or not. You wouldn't have to look up. That was how dialed in your skill execution was at that point. So, grounding was a big one, breathing, and then familiarisation with doing that process. 4 steps back, 3 steps across. Been doing this since you're a young boy, try and make it go through.
And you go into so much, like you said, you've learnt it from so many different people, and I love that you touched on that it was your dad who said it to you, but you're like, you don't know anything.
Yep.
Who can resonate with that, who's had someone in their life.
When you're a teenager,
yeah. But, the thing that sticks out for me with you as well is that you don't just carry who you are onto the field, you carry it into your home life and how you conduct yourself within life as well, as a partner, as a father also. And I think a lot of people, including myself, when you're in high pressure situations, when you've got a lot going on in life, the kettle top can bust off pretty easily. And so you keep yourself grounded throughout that when you've got other challenges going on. Do you find you obviously don't do 2 steps to the side and 1 step and then you've got
meeting? Yeah. It's hard to pick up grass in here, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you try. You go and ground yourself out of it.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things for people who aren't necessarily athletes with the grounding? What do you find with the conversations that you're having in workplaces now with Medal Global is the biggest thing that you can give to people when it comes to grounding themselves with lack of having a massive rugby field and grass in front of them?
Correct. So I think the first thing and the biggest thing you can do is controlling your breathing. When we have our signs of stressful response, our body doesn't know the difference between when we're in the caves and the saber-toothed tiger was coming to get us, or now when we've got a deadline, for emails or work, whatever it may be. Our body still responds the same. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure increases. You actually lose IQ points as well because the blood leaves your brain into your muscles because you're getting ready to punch the saber-toothed tiger from back in the day. So how do you control your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system to bring yourself out of that fight or flight mode? And it starts with the diaphragm and your breathing. So breathing is a really good one. Obviously, you can do that wherever you are. If you're about to walk into a meeting, that's, a bit of a pressure meeting or a hard conversation you're about to have, or as an athlete, you're about to walk into a conversation where you're going to get rinsed. You're going to get some pretty hard feedback about how bad you played or whatever it may be. So doing a little bit of breathing, whatever your technique may be, there's a multitude of them out there. Box breathing was a really effective one for me. And then it's all individual. Like everyone will find what works for them. It might be, there was like my grounding technique was the rubbing the hands together. There were other people that would stomp their feet on the ground in the stadium. There was other people that would stare at the furthest point or the furthest person they could see in the stadium. So there's a million ways to it. It's finding something that you can connect with emotionally that helps you bring you back to that moment, that present. So it might be, tightening your belt, moving your belt. It can be rubbing your hands on your thighs, putting your hands in the pocket, whatever it may be. It's trying to develop something for you individually that you create that response. Okay, yep, I'm back in the moment, I'm back in the present. How do I get out of this monkey mind, 7, 8, 9 things going through my head to focus on the one thing in the present moment?
I love that. And it was actually you who introduced me to meditation and personal development and, having those conversations and just opening your mind to being something bigger or different to the person or living a different life to what your life is now. And so I'll always be grateful for you for that. As we're touching on having both of you here, it goes from different ends of the scale where, somebody's in crisis and then where somebody is struggling. You touched on things that can happen in developmental stages. So when people are growing up, you've talked about having kids and everything like that. I'd love to throw to the audience now to involve some of the crew from the audience on their journey and their story. As we touched on before, you guys spoke really well into when somebody might be going through crisis, and then on the other end of the scale, maybe not even the other end of the scale, but when somebody is wanting to improve themselves, their mindset, ground themselves and find techniques for being a better version of themselves within the day. You also touched on that things can be developmental. So I think it's a perfect time now to throw to the audience where there's so much journey in between those two things, and it'd be a perfect time to start to bring in Jeff Morgan.